What's up, friends? Welcome back to Recalibrate the Podcast. I am so excited to share today's episode with you. It's about red and green flags in spiritual marketing. So, if you're a woman or a person on the internet, you probably know what I'm talking about or what we're talking about in this episode. It's those times that you're following someone on the internet and they just start marketing their program, and suddenly everything feels just like a little bit sus or cringy, or you feel like they're just preying on your insecurities, or maybe using sex to sell, or calling themselves a shaman. There's all sorts of red flags in the spiritual community, or really just any community where there's marketing on the internet. So we get into this deep in this podcast, and we also talk about green flags to look for or use yourself as a marketer or trying to sell your own course or business or whatever it is that you're doing on the internet. So our intention and our hope with this podcast is that whether you're a business owner or a consumer, you can walk away from this podcast with a little bit more knowledge on what to look out for or what to do or not to do when selling your course, purchasing a course, or really just interacting with businesses and people on the internet. So Shannon is the perfect person to have this conversation because not only does she have a lot of the knowledge and the training and the education and the master's degree and all of these collegiate sciencey things going on, she's also a person who uses the internet, who builds community, who has multiple businesses and brands and things online where she's engaging in marketing and stuff herself. So we do have a free resource online that you can check out that Shannon put so much work into. She's a phenomenal person, a phenomenal teacher, a phenomenal friend. And we'll put the link to the free Google document of the red and green flags in spiritual marketing for you guys to check out. And I'll also put all of Shannon's contact information for the Sisters Village and her own Instagram so that you can give her a follow and keep up on the work that she's doing and the things that she's sharing. She really got a fire under her ass when we recorded this, which truthfully was a year ago, and really got talking about this a lot and engaging in the conversation. So you never know when that fire is going to be lit under her ass again. So I would highly recommend you follow her. She's a phenomenal person and a new mother, which is just so exciting. When we recorded this podcast, she was like 8 months pregnant, I think. And now she's a new mom, and just really being able to witness her blossom into this role of mother and expand her offerings in light of what she's learning in her own life has really been an honor. And I'm just honored that she took the time to, share all of this information with me and us and create this free resource. So again, I would really encourage you to check out the show notes so you can see the free offerings. Give Shannon a follow. She's incredible. And just really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast. It is a long one. It's over 2 hours long, so you might need to take some breaks in order to really digest what's being presented. It is a lot of information and it is deep, but going to go get that free resource will help kind of hone it in on the conversation, because we also referred to that resource as we were going through the podcast. So we really hope that everyone can get something out of it. It's certainly not our intention to shame anyone or trigger anyone, though that may be the case. That could always be the case when you're consuming really anything on the internet, but especially when I open my mouth or invite someone else to open their mouth on my podcast. It's always a possibility. But I do want to invite you to examine that, what in you is being triggered, and work through that. We're always here for support. You can send us a DM. I'm sure Shannon would be happy to connect with you as well. So I think that's all I have to say. Oh, the one last thing is I did have a power outage in the midst of this recording this podcast. So there's like a brief break where we had to come back like hours later to finish the podcast. So don't mind that little glitch in the matrix, but it's a great one. There's a lot of information. And even though it was recorded like a year ago, that's my bad, dude. Life was just lifing and I just kept putting it on the back burner. But things are changing around here and I'm starting to eat a frog every day. So I digress. Point is, regardless of when this was recorded, it really does contain a lot of potent and pertinent and impactful information. So I really urge you to listen and take notes and get the free download on the Google Drive, and just see how you can up-level your business using these points that Shannon makes, or be a better consumer. So anyway, thank you all for taking the time to listen, and I hope you enjoy. What's up, everyone? This is Calla from Recalibrate, here with my friend Shannon. We're here to do a podcast on red flags and spiritual marketing, or marketing in general, and ethics in the spiritual community. I'm really excited to have Shannon here. We have been wanting to do this podcast for a long time, years probably.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to have this conversation. So before we get into it, if you've listened to this podcast before, I like to start with some deep breaths and a prayer. This is maybe for you guys, but mostly for me and Shannon to just ground into the space and clear some nerves and really just set our intentions for the conversation. But I would love if you all listening joined us. So whatever you're doing, maybe you could find a quiet place to sit, maybe even shut your eyes. And we'll start by taking 3 deep, long breaths together, in through our nose and out through our mouth, perhaps even with a sound. So let's start by letting go of the breath we've held and breathe in through our nose and let it out through our mouth. Again, breathing in and let it out. Last one, the deepest breath you've had all day. Let it out. Thank you for everyone joining us. I'm going to light this candle as I say a prayer and just call upon the Creator, all of the benevolent beings, our ancestors, Shannon's mom who's passed, and my dad who have passed. Just ask them to be here with us for this conversation and help guide our words, allow us to speak eloquently and clearly in a way that people can receive the message and the truth that we're trying to share. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and this space and the technology working for us to allow us to complete this transmission. I pray that everyone listening receives something beneficial from our conversation and that they can carry forward into the world and in their lives, and that this podcast ripples out to the people who would most benefit from its teachings and lessons. And I just thank you for the opportunity to do this, and thank you for this beautiful life that we get to live, all of the blessings that we have, and the community that we share, and just the opportunity to be seen and be held and be real in this life. So thank you. Aho. I'm going to light the candle. If you have a candle you want to light with us,
let's get it.
Let's light it. Light it up, baby. All right.
Woo!
Yes.
It's going.
Shannon's lighting her candle.
Tall boy.
All right, Shannon, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling inspired and empowered. I'm feeling sleepy. All sorts of emotions are present. A little nervous, but very excited. It's definitely been a long time coming. So yeah, definitely appreciate you speaking to that, and the intention and the trusting of the natural unfolding that it's taken to get here. And yeah, I think I really love the lighting of the candle, because it's been an ember that's been stewing for a long time, and just kind of trusting the timing of the unfolding. It's like, yeah, now's the time.
Now is the time.
I appreciate you having me on, and all of the dialogue that it's led up to this point. And yeah, really looking forward to just the natural evolution of this conversation and what comes from it.
Oh yeah, this has been a long time coming, and it's really been awesome to see how now is the time, because we talked about doing the podcast and then it just lit a fire under your ass. You were like, let's go. You've been creating all sorts of offerings and conversations and everything. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done to prepare for this podcast. And I'm excited to have you. You're the perfect person to speak on this. And you've been speaking on this for years, really, here and there. So
yeah, it's definitely been an intermittent wave of like this passion deep in my belly. And I've just like felt it rise up, and it's come out in different ways, right? As far as just like informal venting on Instagram to more in-depth one-on-one and really personal and vulnerable conversations with individuals who share some perspectives or have those stories that have really been
yeah.
a big inspiration in this piece. So I'm really proud and happy to be at a point where we're channeling this energy in a productive and practical way to where I can follow through with some of the things that I've really wanted to do for some time. So yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate the invitation.
Oh, well, thanks for coming along. It's an honor to have you. So, will you start by giving us maybe a brief introduction of who you are and the work that you do and all the degrees you have?
Yeah, I think, qualifications range. And when we speak to qualifications, sometimes it includes education and sometimes it's just, personal embodiment and deep study. So I do want to bring attention to that. And I think I'm so excited to be stepping into this new flame and this space together and this dialogue in a way where I'm no longer compartmentalizing pieces of myself. For so long, I was really deep in that like the mentality of, and I don't even want to say just the spiritual community, but the box that kind of comes with some of these labels and these traits or these aspects of ourselves that we get maybe a little bit super attached to. And for so many years, I kept the educational piece separate and those qualifications separate, because I felt like, oh, if I'm these things and I'm pursuing like the traditional educational path and working a 9 to 5, does that make me not spiritual? Does that make me less credible in this area? And now I'm just like, fuck all that. And I really love to speak to like the alchemy of science and spirituality. I'm really passionate about the ethics and the grounding and the practicality and objective change and supporting sustainable change in the spiritual community, and also the scientific community that needs some elevation, enlightenment, evolution, and skepticism, kind of just always questioning and always being open to greater pivoting and evolution. So it's my jam to bring those things together, specifically sharing through my lens of like personal and professional experience. I have my undergraduate degree in psychology, which got the wheels turning, but really, if you know psychology, it doesn't really take you anywhere with an undergrad. So I decided to pursue my master's degree in applied behavior analysis, and I've received about 2,000 hours of supervision in my field of expertise by well-known and extremely competent professionals with nearly 10 years of experience, all here in Arizona. And my expertise is really in understanding, when we're talking about my master's degree, applied behavior analysis in that field, it's about understanding the principles of human behavior, essentially studying why we do what we do through like an observable and objective lens, and how we can use that understanding to ingrain new patterns of living and support sustainable behavior change through empirically supported interventions too, right? Like objective, practical, scientific based, to promote that change. In addition to kind of being an expert of the field of ABA and understanding the principles of observable human behavior, I also specialize in the understanding and peeling apart the internal world of private events like beliefs, thoughts, emotions, sensations, and feelings through the integration of what is known as ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. Some people also call it acceptance and commitment training. And like I said, that's really the identification of these private events. These internal worlds do exist and they do influence our behavior. So that's really what kept me lit up about staying in the field of ABA, because for a long time I was like, man, there's a missing piece here. Obviously the observable and the objective is important, but also understanding beliefs and minds and internal conditioning, and how our environment and our upbringing and all of that shapes our worldview, both intrinsically and extrinsically. So technically, I'm a board certified behavior analyst and a licensed behavior analyst. And along with those credentials come committees and boards with ethics to uphold. So the teachings shared that I speak to in both this space and within other spaces that I've been breathing more life into is really inspired by the ethics for behavior analysts. And I integrate ethics for counseling as well as psychotherapy within that lens and framework.
Awesome. So really it's a focus on, observable behavior, which is contrary to a lot of what we see in the spiritual community when they're talking about like clearing your money blocks. It's like, well, what the fuck is that? You're more focused on like scientific, observable behavior, measurable behavior. And in addition, because you're, board certified, just like with social workers or lawyers or doctors or psychologists, all of these people in these professions are guided by a board of ethics, meaning, you have certain principles that you agree to uphold in your practice. And if you don't uphold those, someone can call that board to complain about you, essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And there's actions that follow suit, whether, whatever that board deems appropriate, whether there is some sort of supportive plan to get you back to good standing, or there can be suspension of your license. And that's pretty much all the education, that experience, doesn't go away, but as far as being able to operate from that professional license, it then limits you drastically. My dad always says education is something people can never take away from you. And simultaneously, license to practice is something that can't be taken away, unfortunately.
Yeah, totally. That's true. So awesome. Thank you for sharing more about what you do and, your qualifications. I think it's awesome that you have this background because it really informs the dialogue that we have moving forward and gives us like an awesome framework to work from. And so I guess before we get into the nitty gritty of it, I wanted to talk about, in the past weeks or so, ever since we've started doing this podcast, you've opened up the dialogue on your Instagram page for anonymous shares from people, and sharing, their situations when they've been, maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like mishandled, but maybe some of the offerings they've participated in have been misrepresented or they've experienced predatory behavior. So I'd love to have just like a brief intro of why this is important and maybe some of the feedback that you've received in those conversations from people.
Yeah. That was both like enraging and equally empowering to receive those. I mean, it's known that these things happen, and when you receive that sort of context of understanding of just how like impactful these practices or malpractices can be, it's like you said, going back to the boards of accreditation and those ethical standards and consequences that come. The coaching industry and the industry of like booming spiritual entrepreneurs is a completely unregulated industry. So I think that's like a big variable as to why we're seeing what we're seeing. And the ripple effects that come from that is, it's the prevalence of harm is higher than we'd obviously like it to be. And obviously there's always going to be room for that in any field, in any area of life. And simultaneously there is a need for a shift here. And I think that involves leaning into hard conversations, opening up and holding a mirror and even questioning ourselves and how we showed up. I mean, I can even speak to ways that I've pivoted in the past because I used to be deep in the yogi world and the spiritual world, and felt a lot of pressure to maybe go in the direction of a coach. Not to say all directions of like asking for support and receiving mentorship are going to equate harmful experiences or unethical pieces. But yeah, when we opened up that line, it was very clear just how prevalent a lot of those ripple effects come from the unregulated field. And I think there is definitely a trend of people just kind of reporting specific red flags that they've seen, and then another area of people who are sharing more specifically to like their experience of, I've invested 3K in a coach and I received none of the deliverables spoken to, or I signed up for this program and I then never received any communication or answers to my questions. Or even more like deep and personal predatory instances where somebody has maybe opened up in a vulnerable circle and shared something that they're navigated with, only to be met with solicitation and manipulation and deceitful marketing to follow. And I think a lot of that we see kind of point to the red flags of not only marketing, but also the type of archetype, the type of person that kind of shows up to play those roles. And a lot of times that's that spiritual guru. That's that mentality of holier than thou. That's that I've got grandma's recipe figured out and you can only get it from me. And that's kind of like a good segue to some of our red flags, but really, yeah, opening up that dialogue was, like I said, equally enraging and empowering, because it's like, okay, this is why we speak to it. And even though it's uncomfortable, and even though it might look like, oh, you're not being all love and light oriented, or you're like tearing someone down, why are you being so negative? It's not. We have to be able to step away from that personal over identification and recognize that it's less about the person and more about the archetype that person is stepping in to be, and that it's a choice, and that a lot of it can be unconscious and unintentional. So how do we promote growth, and how do we bring greater awareness to these areas where we do need to pivot, where we do need to learn more information? And that starts with those conversations. So although it can be very uncomfortable to navigate, opening up spaces of that dialogue and then deciding, oh, what do I do with this? Like sometimes reactions from people are pretty telling in themselves. Cause I can say those posts ruffled some feathers, and I had some individual conversations and got to see the true light of some people as far as where they're at on their journey right now, and what archetype they're choosing to step into and tend to, and the ability to detach and not make things about us, but about the ripple effects that come from our behavior. I think that radical responsibility is something I'm really passionate about, is definitely a value that I hold very closely. And that is kind of the takeaway and the invitation here, whether we know somebody engaging in these practices or whether we can relate to where some of these practices could be pivoted in our own business or even personal relationships.
And I think I just want to add, we talked about this before, how we're not claiming to be experts or perfect or that we know everything or we're, above anyone by any means, because I've made mistakes in my own marketing, and, you mentioned you've made mistakes and we've had to pivot ourselves. And it's just important to have this conversation. And I think it's important because as, a consumer of spiritual services or offerings, it's important to know what to look for, what might be harmful and a red flag, and what might be a green flag. And also it's an invitation to people who are, hosting these offerings to maybe look at what they're doing and question if it is ethical. And it's, ultimately up to everyone to decide for themselves. Like this conversation, like we've talked before, is completely nuanced. There's so many different scenarios that it's not black and white, like, oh, you can never do this or you have to always do that. That's not the case. And we can't possibly touch on every single scenario that arises in these communities, but it is an invitation to have the conversation, even when it's hard, because that's oftentimes the most important conversation to have. And
Yeah.
then to just, take what feels good or take what applies and just leave the rest. And, you know, ultimately, like, everyone has the freedom and the choice to do what they feel is best for their business. And, I can't speak to every situation, but I do think we've put a lot of work and intention and thought into what some of the red flags are and what the green flags are. And I think that that can be a great starting point for people to look at and look at their own business or the, course or offering that they're looking to invest in and say, like, is this something that I actually want to do as a business person or a consumer?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I love that you shine light on the nuances of this. Like you said, it's not black or white. There's so many gray areas, and that's where it calls for the importance of just humility and willingness to kind of hold a
mhm,
mirror, have questions, or even ask people like, hey, how do you feel when you receive this? Like, what is, or reviewing our own content after this
mhm,
discussion that we have and these resources that we're able to share. And that's the thing too. Many of these practices that we're going to speak to, or these tactics that we see, are so prevalent in online offerings and woven throughout different communities. And like I said, I've personally navigated, whether it's past conversations with others or past conversations and reflections with myself, when it comes to the implementation of some of these pieces that we're going to talk about. And I will bring attention to some of the pieces that I have used, throughout our dialogue and how I flipped it. And keep in mind that each of these red flags, there is a green flag to follow. So while like the label of it might sound bad, let's be mindful of, holding things loosely, using our own discernment, and allowing to see kind of the counter ethical practice, so to speak. Um, and the
yeah, and
aim,
it's not personal.
it's
Like,
never personal.
we love you anyway. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. You're a human being. It's all good. Like,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I
so
think it's easy for, when one of these pieces maybe do strike a chord within us, it's an invitation to be like, oh, maybe unconsciously I know this doesn't feel good, so this is an invitation for myself to navigate, are my values in line with my practices? And it doesn't mean we're bad people if they're not. Like,
yeah.
the aim is not to shame and blame, but to bring greater insight and awareness as to how to identify these practices so that we can thoughtfully navigate the decision to develop a working relationship with another individual and contribute to this field in a positive way.
Hmm.
Um, and I think a lot of these practices are so, like, marketing in general, for the most part, it can be very predatory and can be unethical. And there's very few instances of ethical marketing. I mean, even if you just think about like zooming out on a broad range of like consumer and what we see, like Super Bowl commercials and all, like that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. It's like, why is this representing this? This makes no sense. There's much ambiguity here. It's very unclear what we're even selling. Um, and a lot of these approaches are not only seen and taught, but sold, right? When we talk about coaches and the paradigm there, and that almost like MLM scheme that we kind of see. It's like coaches coaching coaches to coach. And it's like, what are we actually doing? We're actually just teaching people deceitful marketing, really, at the bones of it, at the bones of a lot of these programs. And not, again, not overgeneralizing, not all, but a lot of these pieces, that's the essence of it. So the invitation is to take any insights that we gain from this space and anchor in solution oriented components when navigating the choice to work with somebody or promote an offering or receive as a consumer, right? Or have conversations with others about what's kind of gathered here. And our intention is to be practical and grounded and speak from our own personal, professional experiences, and share some resources along the way too.
Totally. So should we jump into these red flags? I got
Yeah.
paperwork here. um
Yeah.
yeah, we'll start, for everyone listening, we're going to start with the red flags and just have a dialogue and conversation about some of the things that we've seen come up in these offerings, like, it's not limited to the spiritual community and life coaches, but that's kind of what we're speaking to primarily because of the lack of oversight on these,
Mm-hmm.
this industry, and because of the circles that we find ourselves in. Like that's, a lot of people I follow on the internet are a spiritual life coach or spiritual entrepreneur, and then we'll go into the green flags and things that, you might want to implement in your own marketing, or as a consumer you can look at and say like, oh, that's cool, I want to work with that person. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into it. What are some of the red flags, Shannon?
Yeah, I did want to touch base on the self-appointed gurus and kind of that archetype as we kind of enter in to the tactics a little bit. And I think we've already touched on it, but the way this can
The
manifest,
shamans.
yeah, shamans. Oof, I mean that's the perfect first one. Anyone who calls themselves a shaman, they may have good intentions, but I think we really need to recognize, and this is something that could be a whole second podcast, um, is like cultural appropriation versus appreciation. And this is like going completely off our outline and notes, but I just want to make a note there and probably plant a seed for a future podcast. And I might not be the best person for that one. And I'm sure there's plenty of amazing um, and insightful human beings that would be wonderful. I can already think of a couple to invite into that space. But just recognizing that, recognizing where that might be showing up, and just using your own discernment and trusting yourself when having conversations with people who are maybe embodying and stepping into other practices outside of their own that are commonly accepted these days. And again, just because somebody does a certain thing or wears a certain thing does not put them in this category. We're looking for the archetype and what these traits look like. So with respect to the self-appointed guru, this is like holier than thou red flags, right? We started to speak to this a little bit. This is somebody who might approach dialogue as like with many absolutes as far as knowing or making concrete or absolute claims about the world, or having the secrets to the universe, offering a one size fits all approach, entering a conversation as the know-it-all. Like I said earlier, they claim to have all the answers for you in the world. They don't necessarily take accountability for their own mistakes, or a lot of dialogue rooted in, let's just say, supporting a codependent relationship. Facts of disempowerment as far as like, I'm the only one who can see your blocks, or I'm the only one who can remove these blocks, or I have the ability to see XYZ. And if you want to progress forward on your path, you need to work with me. So like frames
Right.
of disempowerment, frames of I'm the healer and I'm here to teach you, versus somebody who doesn't just say, but truly embodies the idea of we're all healers and we all have that ability to heal ourselves. And this doesn't mean not asking for help, not asking for support,
Right.
not recognizing areas that are maybe beyond our knowing that we want to stretch into with communal support or a mentor support. But really being mindful of people who are promising these outcomes, especially with a one size fits all type approach, whether that be a certain breath work, meditation, coaching program, plant medicine.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah,
just
like they
go ahead.
I was just going to say the real emphasis of it is that they sell you on the idea that you need them and you can't do it
Right.
on your own, which is just complete bullshit. Like ultimately anyone can heal anything in themselves. Like you said, it doesn't mean you can't ask for help or seek
Right.
guidance from someone, but a true healer, someone who, is really embodied in the work, knows that they're just a mirror for you and showing you what you're capable of in and of yourself, and
Yeah.
they're just holding the space for you to do the healing of yourself. Like even when you step into an ayahuasca ceremony, like you still have to drink the ayahuasca. You're the one doing the work. Someone else
Yeah.
is just maybe creating the space or the container for you to step
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Being weary of healers or practitioners who take credit for your progress too. Like, look
Mm-hmm.
how far you've come with my help, or working with me, your life will change. It's
Yeah.
very superior. And not to mention the toxic positivity, which I think this one's getting a lot more attention and dialogue these days, as far as constant love bombing, or engaging in subtle victim shaming and blaming, bypassing self-reflection, dismissing or avoiding emotions or circumstances, or lack of accountability, lack of the idea of that we can all make mistakes, right? Or the
Mm-hmm.
blanket love and light statement, right? Even when we were kind of opening up here, talking about the discomfort, and just because we're navigating harder conversations, doesn't mean that needs to be dismissed, because it doesn't fall under the category of love and light. So yeah, there's a whole plethora of pieces and traits that can manifest from that self-appointed guru. So just be mindful of anyone putting themselves on a pedestal, taking credit, or enabling a codependent relationship. Should always be that you're healing and your journey, and you're experiencing that together. They're not the one leading you, and that they can also say, hey, this isn't, maybe we're not a good match, and there's somebody else out there for you. um, Traits of humility are major green flags to look for.
Okay, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. Let's see. Mine's out of order a little bit from the outline, but exploiting pain points. Does that feel good to go to next?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because really, that's what I was gonna say earlier. Like, when we talked about marketing, like marketing in and of itself can be predatory. What that made me think of is, it's different when you're watching a Super Bowl commercial and they're selling you a, $3 Coca-Cola, as opposed, which definitely has other repercussions aside from just losing $3. But like, it's different when in the spiritual community, people are looking for answers and they're looking for help because they're in pain.
Yeah.
And so when you're using the same, capitalistic marketing schemes that we all pretend to hate, like the patriarchy and capitalism, but then when it comes down to it, people are using these capitalistic marketing schemes in a world in with an audience of people who are in pain and who are
Yeah.
looking for answers. And so it's like, it
Yeah.
just makes it doubly unethical. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah,
what
I
I think.
agree. Thank you for shining light on that, because I remember you talking about that before, and I was like, yeah, make sure we anchor that into this dialogue, because yeah, we need to be careful of the things that we shame and blame, because often, like, not often, but there are times where we can actively become these things that we hate
Mhm.
and judge so much. So extra awareness there as to, like, how these shapings and conditionings of society kind of creep their way in, and they create that leverage, or that disconnect, or that cognitive dissonance, to where it's like we're living one way, but our beliefs are telling us, and our values are telling us to live another way. There's some sort of like split there in cognitive dissonance that we're probably experiencing, whether that's consciously or unconsciously. And yeah, the exploiting pain points, I mean, there's trauma informed approaches laced all throughout this, and I'll definitely speak as to like why each piece is. But let's talk about what it looks like a little bit too. So when we're talking about exploiting pain points, we're talking about preying on trauma, wounds, or painful circumstances. And real quick, I just want to back up to the idea that a trauma informed approach is important, and it is something that we all need to be aware of. We don't need to be fully, not every being needs to be trauma informed as far as implementation and practices, but we all need to be at least trauma aware. As long as we're working with humans, we're working with trauma. We should assume and always plan for individualized, cautious approaches that take trauma into consideration. Because unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. And while everybody's looks different, we should and can almost always assume there's some layer of trauma that is operating within each individual that we're working with. And being aware of our own too, right? And how that manifests, and how that maybe hypermagnetizes any specific traits or things that we kind of lean in towards. So again, just more self-awareness. So what it looks like when it comes to preying on trauma, wounds, or painful circumstances, it might look like marketing that digs deep into personal pain, such as sexual trauma, abandonment wounds, money blocks, without providing ethical context or support. So this doesn't mean that people shouldn't be leaning into these areas of offerings, but it's an invitation to kind of peel apart the dialogue and maybe ask some questions. So some of the phrases that we might see is unlock your money blocks, heal the wounds of your wound, overcome your sister wound, abundance through sexual healing. And the reason why it's a red flag is because it weaponizes people's trauma and vulnerabilities to manipulate motivation behind completing a sale or saying yes to a program, or to even create urgency or fear, and then to offer and profit on oversimplified one size fits all solution. Ethical coaches recognize the seriousness of trauma work and never make promises to fix deep seated issues on any sort of timeline. And I think that's really important to recognize because this is a really prevalent one that we see. So we want to notice when marketing is leaning heavily on creating emotional discomfort, paying attention to any exaggeration of negative aspects of one's life, and how a certain offering or working with a practitioner can serve as that solution. Also noticing when marketing leans heavily on creating emotional excitement or heightened impulsivity to act on a dream, as this is still really rooted in playing on somebody's pain point through the reframe of pleasure or yearning or desire. And then checking if the coach is offering ethical disclaimers about trauma and their scope of practicing and addressing it. Because again, it doesn't mean don't lean into these supports. Like we have these traumas and we have these pain points that maybe we're seeking support through. But I think those ethical disclaimers, I mean, honestly, all of these come down to transparency and communication. I think that's really one of the key pieces that you're going to see weaving throughout all of these red flags.
Right. And it kind of ties into, the other one, like right above that, it's related as promising guaranteed outcomes. So, for example, when, like, let's use the money blocks as one, because this is one I see often. Like,
Yeah.
Get rid of your money blocks or make a, 6 figures in the next year or whatever, and it's like bringing it back to the beginning of our conversation and your qualifications. Like, there's nothing objective or measurable about money blocks. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean you're going to get rid of my money blocks? Like, the way I understand spiritual growth and healing is like, you heal a part of your money blocks and then you get more money and realize there's like other blocks or other things. It's a never ending process, and I've shared this with you before. Like, Ram Dass says, he's fucking Ram Dass, and he's like, in all my years of meditation and all these practices, not once have I gotten rid of any of my neuroses. Like, I don't know that you're gonna heal your father wound or heal your sister wound, like there's always things that could come up again that could trigger that, like death or grief or someone being a bitch to you again. You know what I mean? Like, you're never gonna, there's nothing to heal or overcome, and there's nothing objective or measurable about it. So it's just using people's pain points to sell a pipe dream that you're somehow gonna surpass your humanity.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Heal. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think that we'll get into the green flags about, what that could actually look like, but, offering something objective, like, I'm going to teach you how to do this. Like, that's cool. I know what I'm getting, but this whole feeding on the pain and using your own personal story of how you overcame it and assuming that because this is what you did, everyone else is going to benefit from it. Like, that's not an individualized approach, like you said. And if you're going to be trauma informed or, even just rooted in reality, like, it needs to be individualized.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're all different.
I love the point that you said about like escaping humanity too. Cause like, or our humanism, like so many of these tactics do support and kind of like reinforce the idea of that we can get somewhere and achieve this, and it's an end destination. And when we're talking about healing, and we're not talking about objective goals as far as like engage in this behavior for X amount of days, but overarching, over promising outcomes, and we'll go into that one next. It's this like disconnected mindset of like, yeah, surpassing the human experience and selling a dream, selling the idea of enlightenment, and really like that's a journey. And even when we're talking about growth, and I know this is growth and grief and the journey of grief, I've even recently changed my phrasing around the idea of using the journey of grief, because it's a journey. There's almost like still this destination, right? And it's, if anything, I've learned like just so multifaceted and definitely always individual to the experience, but there's not like an end goal of being healed or coming to whatever point. Like it's beyond the mind's comprehension. And I think that's what we're trying to do too often, is to comprehend these complex spiritual ideas with our minds and trying to make it obtainable. And honestly, I think that's like taking the wonder and the magic out of life. Some things are meant to be unknown, some things are meant to be continuously strived for and not obtained and comprehended, and dwindled down to an Instagram post, or dwindled down to even being able to language about these things. Because I think so much of the beauty of life and the spiritual experience is not to be understood.
Yeah, totally. Like, we don't know. And Jenny from the block down, on Instagram, she don't know either. Like, I don't know why that J-Lo reference just came in my mind, but
it's perfect. She don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go into promising guaranteed outcomes. This looks like wealth, healing, freedom, liberation, enlightenment. And there is a lot of overlap here within definitely both of these and all of them. And we'll start to notice probably common threads weaving throughout. But what this one looks like marketing selling points that are guaranteed, right? The idea of obtaining something like instant wealth, complete healing, full freedom, liberation, enlightenment. Going back to what you said, doubling your income in 30 days, hitting 6 figures in your first month, unlocking abundance, healing trauma, becoming magnetic to abundance. Like, not only is this not objective, but we're also promising something to a demographic that we haven't even met. And coming back to ethics, it's like any therapist, and honestly, many coaches are playing the role of therapists, travel advisors, financial advisors. Like, they're wearing many hats that
nutritionist,
nutritionists,
spiritual advisor,
doctors, even like full blown. Yeah. So, and each of those areas of specialties come with a boatload of ethics and guidelines. And again, hold everything loosely, and even with our own sciences, we should be using discernment. And skepticism is even an ethic of ABA, of applied behavior analysis. Behavior analysts are practicing is like, always remain skeptical, always question, always be open to different things that we know. So why promising guaranteed outcomes is a red flag is because we're dismissing the complexity and individuality of each person's journey. We're not properly assessing. We're not properly screening. We're not understanding certain demographics through a certain lens. We're preying on those pain points. I mean, it's fucking hard out here. I'm pretty sure we all want to unlock our abundance, like abundance codes, like send some my way. If we've all got the secret, then why are we charging so much for our offerings? If we're truly like unlocking codes to abundance? And this makes you question integrity, and this makes you question what scarcity tactics are actually at play for these coaches who are charging $300 an hour, $300 for a session to unlock your abundance codes. If you're so abundant, then why are you operating from a scarcity mindset and charging so much when you're not even qualified to be talking about these things? if we really all have got this unlocked abundance codes thing figured out, then why aren't we just like handing it out like candy and overthrowing like all these big businesses? Like, I think we'd really be in a different world if if someone got the keys. Like, I'm here, I'm ready for them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is it's not, it's not like they make it sound like there's some code that you have to
Hmm.
unlock. And it's like the code that they're selling you is that you too can sell a course or yourself for
Yep.
$500 an hour or 5,000. It's just like getting more people. It's like, how we mentioned before, it's like an underground MLM of spiritual entrepreneurs where it starts with like one spiritual entrepreneur who you pay $5,000 to, and they train you how to also charge people $5,000 for your time, and then you train other people to, it's just like this pyramid scheme of like
Yeah.
chicks selling. I mean, not just chicks; it could be men too, but like it's a lot, whatever. But it's just selling this. It's like selling predatory marketing. It's not a
Yeah.
code. There's not like some code that I can download in my mind and then I just have like unlimited abundance flowing to me. That's
Right.
not what you're selling. That's why you have to charge $300 an hour to talk to you, is because you're not actually selling a code. You're teaching people how to scam people like you are.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
was that harsh? But it's kind of, I
We're
can't
gonna
help
get to it,
myself.
We're gonna say how it is. Um, and
And yeah,
yeah, I mean, we could spiral and
yeah, I
into
was
all
started to
these.
think about another point, so I was like,
I,
I'll just bring it back
I
to
know, I know,
Shannon.
I
She
know.
just
Same. I know.
said it. It's all so related, though,
It it is. It is. It is. So yeah, allowing the natural conversation to come from that. Um, and yeah, like we'll back to the next one and wrap up this one with promising guaranteed outcomes. It reduces the nuanced personal growth to a formula or a quick fix, which is unrealistic and manipulative, and it neglects that trauma informed understanding and is a disregard for the foundations of basic human behavior. Um, and recognizing that ethical coaches really do understand that healing and growth are nonlinear and deeply personal. I mean, if we even talk about the idea of scaling a business, scaling is the idea of this like I don't know which way the screen is, but like increasing a trend and consistently and like skyrocketing, right? Doubling, tripling. And it's really a disregard for nature's natural patterns of life. As we so many of these people are saying, and many of us know, healing is nonlinear. So what makes us think like the journey to abundance or the scaling of a business is any different? It really disregards like nature's natural unfolding and the patterns of life, and recognizing that the rise and the flow and the ebbs and the flow are guaranteed.
yeah. Well, and it's out of alignment with the earth even,
Mhm.
because we like half of the problems we're facing on planet Earth right now are due to consumerism, and a lot of these people who are, you know, doing these offerings like claim to be women of the earth or men of the earth, and it's like, is what you're doing really in alignment with Mother Nature and like, the natural ebb and flow of life, and like taking only what you need, and
Yeah, yeah.
providing value.
Even just that alone, taking only what you need.
Yeah,
That's such
I got
a
yeah.
concrete principle that's like not honored. It's a whole nother one. So
Yeah,
ways
we
that
could
we
get
can
into that.
identify the oh, sorry, you lagged a little bit.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Ways to identify where people are promising guaranteed outcomes. I mean, pretty blunt, straightforward. We already talked about a couple of phrases that we might see, but we're going to be looking for vague or exaggerated claims about results. And on some sort of timeline, there's language that's rooted in subjectivity and focused on the dream life, something that feels like unobtainable and maybe super exciting. Like, oh, fuck yeah, I want
Mhm.
that. A lack of mention of individualized approaches or context specific outcomes, right? Because it doesn't mean like, oh, hey, like create more abundance through learning how to coupon, right? Like giving an actual objective, like save some money on groceries because we got the coupon codes. Like, fuck yeah, cool. I know what I'm gonna get here. Is couponing for me, yes or no? And I can make a decision based off that. uh,
Took me back to like
I
2016,
know.
dude. I forgot.
Yeah. There was a moment where I thought about pursuing it because I was like, fuck yeah, that's the abundance codes of the old days.
Like, dude, how many products they have at their house? Have 75 rolls of toilet paper for what price of one?
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, I need to add that. That was unplanned. Um, so yeah, specific contexts, specific approaches, right? Learning how to budget using Excel, like working advantages to using a certain app, um, whatever it might be. So those are things that we're looking for, and something we might want to ask ourselves is like, is this outcome practical and obtainable for everyone? Because it's being marketed to everybody, unless
Right.
there's a little disclaimer of like who this is for. This is for the middle class, or this is for people who have this level of education or in this area or this sort of demographic.
Single women looking to travel, like
Yes,
a
yes,
mom with 3 kids isn't going to be able to obtain the same freedom
right.
or like abundance as someone who's single and living in Thailand, where it's like a third of the price of living in America. Or I don't know the math, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
right,
it's
totally.
different. But like you said, there are ways that you can offer something concrete and or
Hmm.
just be transparent about like who you're speaking to in that moment.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I
A
think,
lot
I
of
mean,
these,
we can go whichever way you thought, but I was thinking like this kind of ties into like pricing,
yeah,
or where were you wanting to go next?
yeah, yeah. Scarcity and urgency. Which one?
Yeah, like scarcity and urgency, or even just overpriced offerings, like
Yeah,
because like we're talking about the MLM, the unofficial MLM of spiritual entrepreneurs selling their abundance codes, but it's like they're just selling their program of selling other people overpriced things.
yeah, for sure.
Or did you
Yeah,
have in
let's.
mind to go somewhere else? Because we can go
No, we can go whatever
like
order. Scarcity and urgency. Is there one specifically that says overpriced?
it says right before that, it says overpriced offerings and price gouging and the true undertone of scarcity that comes from the
Oh
practitioner.
yeah, yeah. That's not a written one that I have in my resource, but I should add. Yeah, let's just talk about that because I think that I have more green flags for this one.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at overpriced offerings, it's like, yeah, and price gouging. It's like maybe even lack of transparency as far as like this is actually a $3,000 offering, but for a limited time, I'm selling it for 500. And the idea of like that offering was actually never going to be released at that $3,000 mark, and a green flag or a pivot that we can make to more fair pricings, right? Legit offerings, or priced offerings, is doing market research, being truthful and honest about our qualifications. I think there's a lot of people preaching out there like, what is it? Charge your worth, know your value. And it's like, well, fuck, if we're going to compare like my worth and my value and my time as a human being versus my actual concrete qualifications that make me able to step into this role of guidance with full integrity, those are going to be two completely different things. And I think that's a very gray area that people are overgeneralizing. It doesn't mean like know your worth, know your value. Well, then we should all be charging thousands by the hour, if you ask me, and no life and time is more valuable than the other. But when we're talking about qualifications and experience and the responsibilities that come with the act of stepping into a role of guidance and supporting somebody's potential radical life change, that's a different question. That calls for a different level of analysis and different
Right.
questions. Um,
Well, it's like you've been doing that, like most of the people who I see, they do one round of an offering that's like relatively accessible, maybe two rounds, and then suddenly it's
Mm,
boom, my
yep,
prices have gone up. I'm now $5,000 for this 6 month course or whatever. And I'm like,
yep,
wow, I didn't know you became like Tony Robbins overnight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain people, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, like these people, I don't even know if they're necessarily spiritual entrepreneurs, but like there's certain people that have been in the game doing this
yeah,
shit for 20, 30 years, like you're paying for the time that they have put in. And like, they have the audience, they have the reach, and they don't have time to talk to everyone for less than,
right,
$5,000 or whatever. Like, but they've put in the work. Like, you, so and so on the internet, like, have you, like, really take a look at what you're doing? Have you really put in the time and the energy to learn things? Is your offering, like, does it have anything unique
right,
or like actually deep or deeper than the surface level stuff that anyone can find for free on the internet? Like,
yeah,
that was something that came up in your shares a lot, was like people signed up for something and they just got basic shit. And it's like, I paid $3,000 for someone to tell me shit I already knew.
yeah. And let me tell you, AI ChatGPT is sophisticated. Half the stuff these things are being sold. I mean, that you're asking your coach on in their DMs or over their Voxer invite or whatever. Why don't you sit with yourself first and see what's revealed? Maybe call some friends, maybe ask ChatGPT, and I can guarantee ChatGPT can pump out a PDF that might be more valuable than what some of these coaches are offering. Um, my own personal
But
experience
even,
of completing a facilitator training many years ago, I paid $3,000 and I got a PDF that I literally would share for free, like the
mhm,
basic foundations, like pulled from Google, pulled from maybe a couple of like herbal wellness Instagram profiles, and called it a day.
mhm. Well, and then you bring up ChatGPT too, and it's like, do you need to like pay this coach $3,000 who is using ChatGPT to write their materials, or could you just download ChatGPT,
Right?
like,
Yeah.
and maybe get the information directly,
Yeah.
for free, or a $20 membership a month? Like, that's a whole other topic of like the potential inauthenticity of using the robots to create your whole
Yeah.
program. Not that, I've used the robots to like write the contract for this
For
and stuff.
sure.
They can be helpful, but like it's a fine line.
Yeah.
Like, are you really paying for the knowledge and expertise of this person, or are you just paying for their resourcefulness of where they can take something they read and try and resell
Yes.
it to you for a much higher price point?
Yeah. That's such a good point. That's such a good point. With the robots and with the rising AI and also going back to what you said before as far as how long someone's been doing something. That was another anonymous, and not even anonymous, but just open dialogue I had with a dear friend of mine who has put in so much time and work and truly is a very gifted and amazing, unique implementer of breath work and alchemy of sound. And she had somebody who had been to one of her ceremonies that afterwards was soliciting their own ceremony, and she's like, hey, I'm going to do breath work, do you want to come, to this experience? And my friend had asked, like, oh, did you do a training or something? Like, I'm interested, like genuinely interested conversation. And she's like, no, I'm just going to do the breath work you do. And it's like, whoa, this is just another example of how people see something and they take it and they then want to charge for it and overcharge. And the other piece that we have under this part that we already touched on is like there's actually a true undertone of scarcity that's coming from a lot of these practitioners when they see one thing and they're like, oh, I can charge for this. And that comes back to the conversation of like, yeah, capitalism that we live in and the world that we're all trying to escape, and we're just putting it under the umbrella of something spiritual and saying it makes it okay. I mean, it's very similar to the idea of like in ABA, we call it like a transfer of stimulus function. It's like the same thing. The why or the root of it is the same, but it's under the guise of something else. Just like I mean, we can even see with plant medicine. Somebody's sitting with ayahuasca every single weekend and microdosing every day of the week and can't really actually be present and slow down and enjoy the life without the engagement of these plant medicines. It makes us wonder, like, especially if we have a past of engaging in avoidance and escapism tactics through addiction, right? We're just transferring that addictive quality to another stimulus and saying it's okay and calling myself a medicine woman now because it's spiritual, because it's ayahuasca, because it's the frog, because it's a plant, because yeah.
Totally. Totally. And yeah, the like it's like scarcity because I guess it just, maybe not even scarcity, but it makes me think of like, what's the motivation behind what you're doing? You know, we talked about this with transparency and stuff. Like, I think a lot of people say, you know, they want to help people, but really it seems to me, based on the marketing, like they want to make money. They
Yeah.
want to make a lot of money. And helping people is like secondary. They've just found a way that they've found a way they can make money. And it's like kind of fun to talk to people or put on courses and stuff. But, what's their true motivation? Like,
Yeah.
money. A lot of the time, it seems to me like that's what I see.
Yeah.
I see people who want to make money.
Yeah.
And who put on
Primarily.
their spiritual costume to do it.
Yeah.
And like take pictures of themselves. Like, and that's a whole other thing, like the ego driven nature. Like, we talked about, another one we had is like, I mean, I don't know if we're done. I
Yeah.
don't
We
know if
can
I'm
move on.
transitioning too
Perfect
soon, but
transition.
the over sexualization and pleasure point hyper focus you wrote, like,
Yeah.
like I said to you earlier, like, it's a lot easier for someone who's living in, some tropical climate with waterfalls all the time to like take pictures of themselves, like, or videos of themselves like dancing and be like, I'm living my dream life. Like, you too can live your dream life if you work with me. Like, wow, that must be easy to market that shit. Like, you
Right.
can use your body. I'm in my kitchen, like with my hair up. I got like shit on my shirt because I'm making food, like, but I love my life. Like,
Right.
I'm very grateful for the life I get to live, but it's not very marketable or sexy. So it's like, how do I compete with these bitches who are living in, the like beautiful places on earth, and it's like, and paying 1/3 or 1/5 of what I pay for a banana, like, it's like, what do you, I can't compete with that. And like, you can't sell that same dream to people in America, or
Yes.
like a lot of places, or like people, we talked a little bit about like the idea of like selling freedom, but it's like, can you, like, what about black people
Yeah.
or brown people? Like, do their idea of what freedom is, like, can you even say that to them, like, authentically? Because, they're not free in many ways that we get to enjoy privileges that, black and brown people don't get to enjoy,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
simply because of the color of their skin and the way that they're treated in communities and gatherings and by police. Like, it stretches across the board. So like, it's just I guess I went into multiple tangents there about like privilege as well as over sexualization, but like they're related also.
Yeah. I mean, screaming about the privilege, because so many of the ads and offerings that I see are, yeah, these people who are in this place of
These white
privilege
women.
and not recognize. Yeah, let's just get to it. These white bitches living their dream lives, like, right, like no kids, not tied down, like nothing. And not to say one's right or wrong, but it's a variable to consider, especially when we're talking about the idea of freedom. Yeah, the idea, and speaking through like the lens of applied behavior analysis, the idea of relational frame theory. And that's just the idea of we all have different webs of thought born from our direct and indirect experiences. So if I say freedom, white bitches of privilege be thinking, I get to travel all the time. I get to work from my laptop. I'm going to be sitting at a pool and going to a waterfall. And that's like the toughest part of my day is my transportation to get there. And then we've got other people who are like freedom, like, holy shit, I have enough freedom to not work 2 jobs so I can have dinner with my kids. I have enough freedom to splurge a little bit on Christmas this year and not have to worry about making rent. I have the freedom to move throughout this town with greater safety or less safety, depending upon my demographic and my area that I'm living in and my skin and, right? All of these ands that get neglected. And I think it's so important to pay attention to the demographics that are being marketed to. And there are no, I've yet to see a disclaimer. I've yet to see a disclaimer. And when I see one, I will let you know. And I think that's something that should be followed up with is a whole resource of legit practitioners that are using trauma informed approaches that have these disclaimers that at least are integrating some form of trauma informed awareness, right? Just indicating awareness. You don't have to be a full blown practitioner and have this whole scope and go take all these extra courses and blah, blah, blah. But the simple act of awareness, and this can be done through just self-reflection and basic Google searches and committing a little bit of time to learning a little bit more about the worlds outside of our own, because we're not the only ones who exist. And so many times we're operating and marketing from the I'm the main character. And that's something that's marketed too. Be the main character of your life. It's like yes and always yes and
and just being honest and authentic about your privilege. Like no one's saying you can't enjoy your privilege or whatever. Market, you don't have to market to all aspects of the population. Like I understand they may not be your niche or your target audience or whatever, but like just bringing awareness and reverence to the fact that like holy shit, the only way you are able to live this life you're living is because you are insanely privileged. Like not the only way, but like a major factor in the life that you are living is the fact that you were born as a white female, a white straight female too, like there's so many different like in a white man too, like it's all, you have privilege, and just like acknowledging that and being humble in the fact that like, did you do this all on your own, or were you set up for success on a higher, like did you come out of the womb on a higher level of the stairs simply because of what you look like, or just the fact that you're attractive, like in and of itself, like all of this puts you at a higher, like it privileges you. So it's like, yes, abundance codes, I guess, but also like privilege.
Yeah.
It's not just your teachings and your abundance codes that got you to where you're at.
Yeah. And not just recognizing like, oh, I'm privileged enough to do this, and then not integrating that into your full marketing, right? Or your full business approach. Because I mean, when we're talking about a trauma informed approach, we're talking about top down, bottom up. We're not just talking about, ooh, little sprinkle here and there. Like that's not fully embodied. That's not fully integrated.
Right. You're not going to say it just to get the likes or just to say it to like
check it off,
feel good. Check like, oh, I did it. But it's like, are you aware of your privilege, and like, what are you doing to, offer support to other communities or like people less fortunate than you, which we'll talk about in the green flags as well,
Yeah, for sure.
Like scholarship opportunities and such.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. That
we're talking a long time, but I feel like it's important, and we're almost done with our red flags, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we can kind of wrap. I'll briefly summarize the hyper focusing on pleasure points with the over sexualization, because this doesn't mean that, people who truly are supporting others with sexual trauma, it doesn't mean don't share about that authentically. It just means check for whether the marketing is aligning with the actual content. Are there disclaimers and trigger warnings? I think that's a big piece that needs to be talked about. Throw a fucking quick trigger warning on your content. If you're going to be talking about juicy dripping, sexual trauma, healing, all of activated womb codes, right? And paying attention to if the offering is truly about sexual healing or that piece, and is that person qualified or credentialed. Again, this doesn't have to mean that this person has pursued psychology and this only route. Qualifications don't only look like one route, but it does look like transparent sharing around why I am qualified to hold you in this vulnerable piece of your journey, and what you can expect from me, and what I feel confident in, and what's the edge of my scope where I will refer you out to another professional or practitioner. Asking ourselves,
Right.
does the language and content feel exaggerated or out of place? I think there's a lot of words in marketing like juicy, dripping, or sensual attached to courses that focus on transformation and business and healing in ways that feel like forced or irrelevant to the content being talked about. Um, and just hypersexualization alone in marketing, it does prey on people's desires for connection and pleasure, and can be used manipulatively to distract from the actual substance of the content that's being offered. And trauma informed approaches really do understand that hypersexualization, just like any other piece of trauma, can trigger or manipulate individuals who have experienced this type of trauma and use it for the sake of selling programs. I almost fell in this trap many years ago, but for the sake of time, yeah, I'll share that. I'll share that another time.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, like I said, there's difference between selling a Coke with some boobs and like selling money unblocking your money blocks thing. Like it's just, is the sexual nature even related to what you're selling? Because I just see so much sexual language, and then it's like they're talking about finance, and I'm like, maybe they're related, but like, I don't know. And I mean, I think I liked what you were saying. I think that leads into the next one too, of like lack of an acknowledgement of scope and qualifications. Like,
Yep.
really just being transparent about like who you are, what you know, what you've studied, what you've experienced, and why you're, qualified to speak on this, and what your scope is, because everyone's scope has to end somewhere. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not reasonable for a life coach to think that they can be a doctor, a nutritionist, a pastor, a spiritual advisor, a financial advisor, and a friend, and like clear your money blocks and your sister wound and your father wound. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot for one person to take on. Like, I mean, maybe if you're like a 70-year-old woman and you've lived, a bunch of life, like I would have a little bit more say to you. But if you're, or like reverence for your process and the fact that you may know more about those things, but like in 30 short years of life, like, you really
I call
think you're
bullshit.
qualified to speak on all those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? A jack of many trades, but a master of none.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I think that is what it is.
Yeah. So lack of expertise. Yeah. Acknowledgement of scope and qualifications. And again, qualifications, not necessarily education. Qualifications can look like many things. It might look like overgeneralization of a personal experience with no professional knowledge or scope. Coaches positioning themselves as experts in areas outside of their qualifications, such as offering financial advice, therapy, medical insights without proper training or credentials. We've really touched on this one a lot already.
Mm-hmm.
And again, absence of disclaimers. Can't stress that enough. We can avoid so much by throwing a 25-word disclaimer at the end of a caption on our website, wherever it might be. Just with transparency about our background and limits of our expertise. And operating outside of one's scope is like the number one way to disregard the common ethical principle of do no harm. Do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
This starts with, having good intention and knowing what is our boundaries. It can be super dangerous, especially when working with vulnerable populations. These are the populations being preyed upon or targeted, or the ideal, target audience. So yeah, it can be very dangerous when we're working with those demographics that are looking for support with trauma, mental health, or physical health issues.
Yeah, because I mean, I keep going back to the money one, because it's really just, to me, the best example. Because, like, for scope and qualifications, like, you can have someone think about money differently all you want, but if you can't walk them through how to, like, approaches to best tackle their debt, or how to minimize spending or stuff like that. Like, it doesn't really matter how much you think about money or how you change how you think about it. Like, there has to be grounded steps to take in this earth reality to actually get around that and to actually implement those beliefs. So, like, yes, there could be an aspect of your offering that is about how you think about money, but I know for me personally, I would rather, like, I think in addition to that, like, I need to be told to maybe go to a financial advisor, or
Right.
like have a CPA, or like, in addition to them seeking you, like, you can also outsource to other financial experts, like an investor, or like, even within the financial realm, like, it's not like one financial person does all of it. Like, there's a financial person for your taxes, there's someone for investing, there's other people for retirement, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's all, and a lot of times they do work together and refer each other. So I think that would be a green flag, is like saying, in addition to working with me, like, I know these people who have these skills that you can reach out to for help with this aspect, and then you can come back and we can work together to get through the next part of the
Yeah.
healing or whatever, once you finish that step.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I
So,
saw posts like promoting like, oh, I just like filed bankruptcy and all my debt went away. It's like how not informed, and oof, that's a whole nother.
well,
All
yeah,
these
I
are
mean, just to touch on that, because you did put here encouraging radical life changes, and I think that's
perfect.
another important aspect to make too. Like, filing bankruptcy isn't a radical life change for some people, and you're not going to want to encourage everyone to do that the same way that you don't want to encourage everyone to quit their job, or
Yeah,
everyone to go to college, or everyone not to go to college,
yeah,
or like, we need people who are willing to go to college and work regular jobs if we're going to have society function. And to say that everyone needs to, like, completely uproot their life and move across the world and quit their job so they can work online is just, like, unrealistic. Who's going to stock the grocery store
yeah,
where you just bought your lunch? Like, who's going to farm
yeah.
the food that you're eating?
Yeah, this one is one that I see so often. I mean, all of these are, but especially this one, like it's just encouraging those extreme actions without knowing anybody's circumstances. Like you said, quitting your job, leaving the country, abandoning relationships or certain pieces of our identity to find ourselves, to speak our truth, to live our dharma. And gosh, that just like segues to the other one of leveraging religion and spirituality that I definitely want to go into next. Um,
Mhm.
because there's so much like blame and shame around like, oh, you're not living your dharma, so you're disrespecting God. And it's like, whoa, that's a really personal, vulnerable subject to be going in and putting those sort of projections out there. And maybe you get a good response and it increases your views, but again, I question the motivation behind those tactics and those shares and those phrases and purposes. But with respect to the radical life changes, it might look like go all in on your purpose. I promise it's worth it. Like make the jump, take the leap. And that's like disregard for people's decision making and trusting themselves and their authority. And I think this kind of weaves both of the radical life changes and scarcity, or marketing from scarcity and urgency, right? Like buy this offer, it's only at this crazy discount for the next 24 hours without transparency as to why. And again, we'll get to the green flags. um, but yeah, just encouraging the big leaps and promoting a complete departure from current life circumstances as the only path to happiness or fulfillment can be just so dangerous and so selfish to be operating from that point. And this comes back to scope. It's like now we're overgeneralizing our own experience and trying to sell that dream from a place of privilege and saying that the only way to obtain these things is if you do XYZ. And it's not realistic and it's not grounded.
Oh my God.
You're frozen.
All right. Well, I don't know if you all will notice this in the recording or not, but my power literally went out. My whole house just, I heard it go whoa and get really quiet. So luckily, I'm using this awesome software that recorded everything and stored it. And it's been a couple hours since we were doing that recording. So Shannon and I are going to do our best to, pick up where we left off. We were talking about privilege and like encouraging radical life changes over sexualization. And I think we're just gonna jump back into it by hitting the next red flag. Then we'll hit some green flags and carry on with our lives. So thanks, Shannon, for bearing with me with all these, crazy crazy things. Honestly, I will say sometimes I feel like when I'm doing something really powerful or potent, I've had my phone just shut off or the power go out, and it's like I don't know if it's like evil forces trying to discourage me from speaking the truth, but I can't be stopped. You can't be stopped.
Yeah, I
So thanks for your
can't help but feel like that either. I've noticed similar trends in my own life and dialogue with others. So yeah, here we are, keeping on, and excited to get back to it and get to some green flags and talk about some pivots we can make, and talk about the room for change in a lot of these areas with respect to these tactics that we've hit on, and kind of reframe them in a different way. Um, yeah, so we really have hit a lot of them, and I think we were skating around the which one was it? Um, Scarcity tactics and exploiting pain points, and there's a bit of a subcategory that I think we both wanted to dive into with respect to leveraging spirituality and religion, which is really interesting to see. And I think earlier we spoke to it very briefly, but it's kind of a subcategory of that pain point. I think that one's journey of whether that's on a specific religious path or spiritual path, and again kind of coming back to the different frames that we have, maybe we prefer one word over the other for our own reasons, but essentially that path of deepening a sense of self and understanding purpose and why we're here, and anything else that comes up with that journey, as it's very personal and specific to each and every one of us. And while all of these areas are very like, I don't want to say fragile, I just want to say more, all of these areas should be addressed with, oh man, forgot to throw out the pregnancy disclaimer, the pregnancy brain. I don't want to use the word caution. That's not the one that I was going to use. Um, with reverence. With reverence is the
yeah.
word I was going to use. And not
Mhm.
just saying that we're doing it, like truly, truly respecting differing views, and respecting the unique journey of each of these what each of these look like. So, three different areas of like religious leveraging religion and spirituality might look like promoting misalignment with our purpose or dharma as a fear-based tactic. It might also look like the opposite, promoting abundance through a change in spiritual practice, and potentially suggesting that not leaning into offerings or growth or stepping into your purpose or dharma, whatever that is an act of disrespecting God, and just the overgeneralization, and the pain points that come from that. So yeah, let's briefly just move through that, and then we can get to some solution-oriented pivots that we can make with green flags.
Yeah.
Um, Promoting misalignment with purpose or dharma as a fear-based tactic might look like messages that imply that if a person doesn't make a specific change or engage in a specific action, whether it's buying a course or freeing yourself through saying yes to this program, whatever it might be, that they're living out of alignment with their true purpose. Even if they're not directly saying that, it might be insinuating, the message might be insinuating that they're not in line with their purpose or highest self, or
Or
failing
they're
to
not
their dharma.
investing in themselves.
Investing in themselves too. That's a whole
Yeah.
That's a whole nother phrase that we see a lot of it is like invest in yourself, like take that leap and trust that, abundance will follow or whatever it is.
Mhm.
For other phrases like lead a life of purpose, staying small keeps you out of alignment with your true calling. By not taking this leap, you're dishonoring the path meant for you. And why it's a red flag is because this kind of language is leveraging both guilt and fear that can be rooted deep, deep within the religious or spiritual path, and suggesting that an individual's life is lacking of a certain spiritual or religious trait, or that it's insufficient in some way. And not only that, but as a manipulation tool, but it turns deeply personal concepts like purpose, dharma, into pressure points that imply a lack of fulfillment. And yeah, I mean, just that alone, I'm just kind of like baffled by people who take take that approach.
Yeah.
Again, you can kind of feel it as a fear-based tactic, and um, the lack of trauma-informed approach there too, and not even those who might have like religious or spiritual traumas, but it's, like I said, very much so a subcategory of that pain point. It might spark harm within individuals who are struggling with self-worth, life direction, or spiritual identity, pushing them into making decision based on fear rather informed choice.
Mhm.
Especially something as strong as spiritual or religious pathways, because a lot of that is rooted in faith and things that we can't see or measure. And that's a beautiful thing. And there's a lot of space for that to be leveraged and used against us. And that can just be really, really harmful. And ways that we can identify that is looking for messages that subtly or overtly pressure others by suggesting that their current state is inadequate or off track. So we need to be cautious when marketers are using terms like purpose, dharma, or alignment as a means to create a sense of urgency or imply that others are failing in their spiritual journey by not engaging with their services or offerings or practice that they're recommending.
Yeah. That was all okay, that was that one. That reminded me of something. I feel like we kind of talked about this in the scarcity and urgency, but I
Yeah.
wanted to hit on it one more time because I think a lot of this, a lot of this stuff to me, it's like, if you're doing one thing here or there, it can definitely be harmful. But the issue I see is I see a lot of people using all sorts of harmful tactics in one.
Hmm.
And one thing pattern that I see is you actually just shared a post with me recently where it was like, get my $3,000 course or whatever for $333 for the next 24 hours. And
Yeah.
it's like, is your course worth $333 or 4,000? I'm confused. And it's like especially harmful when you look at that in the context of like, if they're selling something, for example, about like unlocking your money blocks, and then they're also using this like really short turnaround in which you have to make a decision to save all of this money, it's like you're double hitting on that pain point because
Hmm.
these people are hurting for money. So they're looking to you for answers. And now you're telling them that they have to act in the next 24 hours in order to save this amount of money. And it's like the stress, like I feel anxious just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that's like it's different. We talked about if you're gonna offer, like if you're trying to do a retreat and you need to secure the space, so in order to get early signups you offer a discount, a reasonable discount
Yeah.
for the first 30 days or 2
Hmm.
weeks or some amount of time that gives people time to actually feel into it. And we could go into the whole human design of this, but maybe we should just do another
Yeah. Yeah.
human design podcast. But
Yeah.
it's like that's a little bit different than this whole like buy now, act now, to get it now, to try and like for what? Like there
Yeah.
is no urgency. It's a false sense of urgency that they're using as a
Yes.
marketing tool. And when you do that in combination with also playing on people's pain points and all of these things, you just got a cocktail of like unethical behavior. And there's no just to hit on this again, there's no governing board. There's no
Hmm.
one that you can go to and say this life course or life coach or spiritual entrepreneur isn't acting ethical. Like, you're out that money. You don't
Yeah,
have it anymore, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's why this conversation is so important, and it's, we have to be mindful and like take a step back from our stories and our own pain points to try and look at like, okay, what it, like, keep in mind this person is trying to sell me something, you
hmm,
know and like, if I can remember like, okay, they're trying to sell me something, and take a step back and take time to feel into myself, like, that's why I don't buy a lot of these courses or things. I'm like,
yeah,
am I really going to get 500 or $5,000 worth of stuff? Like, I feel like I could just go read a book and
yeah,
probably get, just as much insight, unless it's someone reputable. But
yeah. High discernment. It really calls for so much discernment, and like we touched on at the beginning, these are individuals. I mean, both of ourselves having our own experience as well, who are in vulnerable places or in spaces where we're really open and receptive to exploitation of these different points. And
mhm,
yeah, I mean, I think we could just like talk in circles, and I think it's
yeah.
so in a productive way, of course, but there's so many nuances and rabbit holes within each of these red
Mhm.
flags. So again, the whole purpose is just to maybe invite in some discernment and invite in like, okay, let's just take a breath before this decision, and it doesn't have to be mean like closing the door entirely on this field, so to speak, but recognizing, like you said, there is a lack of a board, there is a lack of regulation, which, not only do all these other fields that have professions that many of these coaches are stepping into and operating from, as far as like financial, mental health, all these different areas of expertise that truly calls for greater qualification, is it's not, there's not sufficient means to deem one accredited or with enough skill to hold that sort of container or work with that sort of individual, um, or teach on, in alignment with whatever modality is being navigated in the moment that comes up with behavior change, and when we're working with humans. And I think that, yeah, privilege is a big piece of that, of what we're seeing as far as the demographics that are kind of um, more readily in sight when it comes to shopping on Instagram for courses or looking for that advisement or mentorship. So yeah, inviting in discernment, and reflective questions as far as, all right, is this person being transparent? And I think a lot of it comes down to transparency. Is this person recognizing their privilege when they're saying, my entire life shifted into abundance when I changed the way I pray? Like, what does that say about, I think that one irks me. I mean, they all equally irk me, but something about that one within the times that we're living in, to say that your way of prayer is superior to others who are in truly, truly spaces of hardship that maybe this person has never navigated. We've got
Yeah,
women and
like
children and
genocide.
mothers. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, let's just get to it. We've got women and children and mothers and fathers holding, their family members that have been just. I just don't even want to paint that picture for
Like,
us.
you think those people aren't praying, right?
But, right.
Like, sometimes things happen outside of our circumstance, and like, you can pray to God all in the grief spaces we talk about, like
Yeah.
how common it is to question God because you're like,
Yeah.
why did this happen to me? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's just a little bit naive to
Yeah.
think, that it's your prayer and your privilege and a bunch of other things that are at play.
Yeah, yeah. Who's to
So,
say those who can't put food on the table aren't praying every day and working and actually doing committed action and observable things, and not able to
mhm,
get out of a cycle of oppression or whatever that might be. Um,
mhm,
and it doesn't
absolutely.
mean we can't create small shifts and changes in our lives with prayer, with intention, with reflection. But to equate such causation versus correlation, it's like, okay, is there
Right.
actually a true, like what we call in behavior analysis, like a functional relation here? Can we really prove, when we're looking at experiments and data, can we really prove that this dependent variable affected the independent variable,
Right.
or vice versa, whenever we're looking at those relationships? So yeah, looking at correlation versus causation is, I think, an important piece too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're
Ready for
feeling
some green
complete.
flags?
Yeah, feeling
Yeah.
complete with the red flags here.
Yeah. Let's hit the
Um,
green flags.
yeah, so as we move into understanding green flags, we can not only work to avoid more harmful marketing tactics, whether we're on the receiving end or the producing end, even, and again, being humble in that claim and recognizing where the pivots are being called for, but also create marketing strategies that reflect integrity, build trust, and support our growth in a healthy, compassionate, and responsible way. And the
Mm.
ripple effects that come from that too, right? When we can take ownership and point out, like, hey, I used to do this, not doing that anymore. Here's the pivot I'm making in service of this value of mine, in service of this ethical dilemma that maybe I was experiencing. Um,
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with taking ownership for what you've done wrong in the past. And I actually think that that's like a true marker of an authentic and growth minded human, is to not
yeah,
just hide in the shadows and like subtly change what you think you've done wrong, but to really take ownership of that publicly and
yeah,
say, I'm making this shift because I've learned this. Like, wow, that's someone that I want to work with, because that takes courage and conviction, and that's noble, honestly.
yeah,
Like, I'd rather see that than have you try and hide and fix. You know what I mean? Like, just be real.
yeah.
We love it.
We love it. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think ownership is, we talked about at the beginning, radical responsibility. It
Mhm.
invites in not only growth for ourselves and confronting whatever comes up when we lean into sharing ourselves as a full human that makes mistakes, but the ripple effects that come from that, and when that is received and truly felt, because integrity is
Mm.
felt. It's not something that we just talk about. Compassion is felt. All of these pieces that interplay together is not just something that we can read via fact. It's something that's truly felt, and unfortunately, that is something that's very hard to teach and speak to, because it is an intuitive feeling. I think you're right. We could totally do a whole podcast on human design. Um, it is interesting because
And
a lot
maybe
of
we
these red
will.
flags are coaches who are talking about nervous system regulation, and they're quite literally working against or working to manipulate those who are following intuitive polls, or not recognizing that we all have the ability to regulate our nervous systems and what comes with that. So
Yeah.
I think the first green flag we can get to is the kind of the other side of the coin when it comes to overpriced offerings, and even
Price
lack of
gouging.
transparency in pricing, right? I mean, how many offerings have you seen that it's like, DM me this word for more details, and it's like you can't
And then you
even
have
get a price before you're like, you have to book a consultation call with this person. It's like, why can't you just put what you're going to get, the name of the offering, the dates, what happened to like a formal invitation? Like when you send a birthday card, you're not saying like, message me if you want to come. It's like, here's the dates, here's the facts. Can you come? Yes or no? Then we'll move into
yeah.
details from there. Um,
It
Go
saves
ahead, Rick.
everyone time.
Yeah,
Like I don't have time to do a 30-minute call. Like just tell me if I'm going to be paying. Like truly, I see so many offerings. I'm like, I have no fucking clue if this is going to be $30 or 7,000. Like
yeah,
people are all over the fucking place with their prices. So I'm like, when you're not putting how much it is, I'm like, that makes me skeptical. I don't even want to
yeah,
reach out, because in all likelihood I can't afford it. And then
right.
it's like embarrassing to be saying I can't afford it. And if you're not transparent, it's like, are you just trying to get me on the phone and make me feel vulnerable and tell me I
Yep.
need to invest in myself in order to,
Clear some
to
money blocks.
and that you have payment plans, or just for you, I'll take off $300 or whatever. It's like, it just gets into this murky, weird area. And I think a
Yeah.
green flag for sure is being like, this is my course. It costs $500. You're going to get this many calls, this many PDFs, this much, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. And I think another tier of that is not only like transparent pricing, but honest and true value pricing. And what we can do to support the flying of that green flag, so to speak, is do market research, right? Like look at if you're stepping into the role of a business coach or more of a nutrition mentor or a therapist, even, I think all of those things should be looked into, because what I'm seeing, some of these prices, $300 for one call, these people are charging more than accredited therapists that went to school, or business consultations that are like top head honcho. I was doing some research, actually. I should have pulled it up for this, but invitations to do so on your own, because it's quite astounding to see what people value their offerings at, and their time at, and just like how how inconsistent it can be. Like you said, this offering I'm seeing for this subjective goal is could be $300, could be $5,000, depends who it's coming from on what day. So do your market
Yeah.
research. Look for people who are engaging in transparent conversation. Look at people who have realistic prices, and getting to know the market by looking for the source or the area of expertise that you're looking at. You can just fucking Google it. It's really simple.
Yeah.
If you want to get to the different layers, go to ChatGPT. It'll tell you the average for different, even like regulated standard places and accreditations. And just to throw it out there, your average therapy session, and that doesn't even go into like potential insurance routes that these other modalities might have. I don't know any
Mhm.
coach or facilitator that accepts insurance or has those abilities too, because again, it's an unregulated industry, so no insurance is going to approve that sort of payer relation. So when we're
No.
looking at these things, like average therapist might be like $150 an hour, 100
Mhm.
$150 an hour. And then again, not to mention the potential of using insurance or being able to submit
Mhm.
for different claims. So yeah, do your
Totally.
market research, look for those true values, look for transparent conversation, and transparent marketing when it comes to what you're getting and
Mhm.
how much you're spending. Um, and I think like a subcategory of that, which you've kind of touched on a little bit earlier, clear, compassionate, and ethical pricing, right? And that might look like the opposite of those scarcity tactics. So, listing clear refund policies, right? We're not all in the place to give a refund. Just have a note about it. Transparent
Yeah.
communication, or refunds are not available 1 week before. If there's certain parameters that can easily be outlined to support and protect, of course, the business owner and the consumer. When we
Yeah.
lay things out in a very transparent way, we're protecting both parties, and we're covering our own asses, and we're respecting those consumers and acting in an integral, ethical way. Another one's the ethical early bird pricing, right? And that's like a subcategory of the scarcity and urgency. There's the false scarcity and urgency of just, there's, till the end of the day you get to have this at this value, $300 versus 3 grand. But then there's the transparent communication around early birds. Hey, we're doing a retreat, we're offering the first 5 spots or 2 spots at this special rate. And again, you won't see huge jumps in pricing if it's fair pricing.
Mhm.
That's a red flag when you see great jumps like 300 to 3,000. It's like, this isn't matching up. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And
Why
do
would you sell a $3,000 program for $300? That doesn't make
makes
sense.
no
It's not a
sense. You're
$3,000
undermining,
program.
yeah, you're undermining your value. And when you're looking at retreats, go to that retreat center location and look how much it is to stay. Like, do your market
Mhm.
research and do the math and see what they're charging for the additional offerings being brought through. I'm not saying it should match that, because the facilitators are bringing through their own gifts and whatever that might be. But there shouldn't be too large of a jump. Um, so with respect
No.
to the early bird pricing, yeah, hey, we're selling these spots at this discounted rate so that we can cover the upfront cost of securing the property. Um,
Mhm.
Payment plan options are another way of ethical, compassionate pricing, and again in a way that's clear, spelt out, transparent.
To
Um,
everyone.
yeah,
Like, upfront, not like, "Oh, once you call
an
me,
aside,
and then we
yeah,
talk," like, "Oh, I'm," because then it feels like you're just offering me a payment plan, like, and I'm special, when in
yeah,
reality, like, a payment plan should be offered to everyone if you're gonna offer a payment plan, or else it feels a little manipulative, you know?
yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good point to make. Um, and then if you do, right, if sometimes the desire behind these senses of urgency that we put out there is to be compassionate and be like, hey, I really want people to come to this, and I want to act from this place of compassion and giving and helping and supporting people. Do a partial scholarship, do a full scholarship. These are opportunities. And honestly, if we're raking in that much cash, there should be no reason why we don't offer some sort of discounted piece. And again, being transparent, not being quiet on the side. You're sliding in my DMs, you have scarcity, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to like employ all these different tactics on you individually now in the space of vulnerability when it comes to a one-on-one conversation. If you don't see it spelled on the website, definitely ask some questions as far as like, why isn't this available to everybody else? Is there some sort of transparent application process? If there's some sort of scholarship, there should be some sort of application process, even if it's just telling the person a little bit about yourself, why you want to be there, some of your life circumstances. It doesn't have to be a full like poor me letter. It can just
A raffle.
yeah,
Like, you could
love
even
a
just
giveaway.
do
Yeah,
a giveaway, you know, like, you don't have it doesn't have to be a whole thing, but I think that having some sort of element of giving back to the community and offering, one freebie at least, or I think one freebie is like a solid, if you've got room for 10 women, like, let one come for free and do it as a
yeah,
giveaway, or have them send a application. Like, you can do it however you want, but I think that really demonstrates like a commitment to the community, and it's not very much of a sacrifice on your end to offer
yeah.
one spot, you
I
know.
agree. Yeah. And referral
If you ever
programs too. Referral programs are great ways to like build communities, build networking, and tend to that in an integral way. Like, hey, you're doing this, you're in a completely different domain. I would love to, give people a 10% discount code and say when they sign up you get 10%, and then maybe you refer them or there's some sort of kickback for me. That's a very integral way to support others in a way that's shifting out of that like capitalism big business type approach. And I think
Yeah,
there's one
especially
more. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, especially when you're transparent about these things, like,
Yeah,
hey, I have a referral code or whatever, and I get a little bit, and you get this benefit, and that's all out in the open, then that's Gucci.
yeah. Again, I think it really all boils down to transparency, which is not too difficult to add in some words, add a disclaimer, telling someone a little bit more about the why or factors at play. I
Hmm.
think I honor transparency so much. It's actually a professional and personal value that I hold very closely. And one more actually that's not on the list that I just thought about is trauma informed pricing. So trauma informed pricing might look like all the things that we've talked about and also sliding scales. So maybe there's three different tiers, and we do this for our women's group offerings. I mean, the one repeating circle that we do is donation based, and then any other offerings outside of that, if we're doing like the quarterly workshop, it's a trauma informed sliding scale. So we have a smaller discounted spot, unlimited number of spots, and then we have a fair value middle tier, and then we have more of a giving back. If you have more than than the average and you want to contribute to the lower tier scholarship position, then you're in that place to give a little bit of extra. And honestly, it
Yeah.
all ends up leveling out. And it really puts the woman or the man or the receiver, the consumer, whatever you want to call it, in the position of reflecting and being like, you know what? I am in the position. I do want to hold myself a little bit higher, as far as my level of commitment, and doing so financially will be supportive to me. I'd like to donate a spot, or like, hey, I really want to do this, but this spot is a little inaccessible to me. Now doing this first tier makes it a little bit easier for me to say yes. Or just like fair
Yeah.
value, like I can pay for what it is, and that is what it is. And I like that, having that tier, because it doesn't put somebody in the position of having those vulnerable conversations. And um again, it puts the person in this space of deciding and acting within integrity, because I've never had a full container do all low tiers, not one time. And I think there's a lot of fear from like the business standpoint of, acting with scarcity and being like, oh, I don't want everyone to choose this lower thing. And it's up to us to um, come up to those different values that we determine as far as the pricing. But having three tiers, I think, is a really great approach to have on
Yeah,
top of
it
this other.
empowers the person to make the decision that's best for them and do so in a private way. Like I've looked at your website before. I couldn't go to the what this virtual sister circle, but I looked online and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, because I don't have to reach out to Shannon and feel vulnerable and be like, I can't, I'm in a tough spot, or like even have a conversation with you. Like, I just get to pick which tier I can afford it. And it may
Yeah.
shift and change, and that's the beauty of
Yeah.
it. It's really empowering. And I appreciate that you shared that, like, never once has everyone picked the low tier. Like, it
Yeah.
always works out.
Yeah. Yep. And again,
Yeah.
it depends on your motivations, right? Like that community, we don't approach with a profit mindset. That's not a business to me. That was created selfishly because I'm like, I want this space for women, and what can we do? And the little donations that we do get help contribute to maintaining the website, to all those monthly fees, to securing the domain, and having these operations to support it. And then our Thursday circle, it all goes back to the space. None of our facilitators actually even get any of that. It all goes to our place of hosting, because we're so grateful to have a consistent space that we can sit in. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can be integrated here that we talked about when it comes to pricing, and really at the end of the day, it comes down to transparent communication, which kind of segues us to our next one, which is transparent communication about outcomes and clear and objective outcomes, right? And, when we're talking about the big grand selling of the dream and subjective woo woo word salads, we didn't even get into word salads, but um, don't worry, more of that will be included in a lot of the free resources and spaces that we talk about more at the end here. Um, but yeah, this looks like no over promising. This is just keeping it simple, keeping it objective. It's marketing that emphasizes the potential for growth or transformation, while making it clear that outcomes vary based on individual circumstances as well. So not only are we being um, very clear about what somebody's getting, but we're not overpromising things. We're seeing phrases like, this program offers tools to help you on your journey. While everyone's experience is unique, this course provides guidance and support in these areas.
Yeah.
And with respect to that, this might look like, as far as like how to identify or incorporate this is using or looking for language that emphasizes potential outcomes, no guaranteed results. And the offering should use wording that is not overgeneralized, right? We've talked about that word a lot, but it does not guarantee the same outcomes for every individual. And the coach is taking the place of explaining tools, techniques, or strategies that are being offered, while leaving room for individual variability.
Yeah. Specificity, too,
Yeah.
like just being specific about what's entailed rather than like, you'll find bliss and freedom at the end of this course. It's like, what does that mean?
What is
Like,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
the next green flag is acknowledging and respecting pain points without exploiting them. So again, every if we're working with humans, we're working with trauma. It doesn't mean to avoid these topics. It doesn't mean to avoid these words or avoid working with these populations. But some things that we can do, or what it might look like, is specific marketing strategies that are mentioning common struggles or challenges in a way that is compassionate and offers support and does not sensationalize these struggles, right? If you're struggling with self-doubt, this course offers guidance to help you feel more empowered through XYZ rather than unlock your self-worth in 30 days, right? Like the intention, the
Yeah.
behind the scenes, behind the curtain, it might be the same offering. I mean, I beg to differ when we don't have that transparent communication and ethical marketing, but at the root of
Yeah.
it, it's like, okay, we're looking to increase self-worth or increase trust in self or whatever that might be. But again, going back to the last green flag, we're not over promising results. We're not saying this is guaranteed. Unlock this thing within X amount of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, ethical marketing doesn't prey on people's pain or trauma or manipulate them into purchasing. Essentially, it really creates opportunities to understand the practical tools that are going to be supported or employed in those containers in a supportive space. Um, so, looking for marketing that speaks to struggles in a grounded and respectful way and acknowledges these things that are at play rather than using them as a tactic. The messages should feel supportive rather than fear based and offer solutions without exploiting vulnerabilities. Yeah.
Yeah. What's next? Do we have more green flags?
Yeah, just a couple more. So just the idea, and we don't have a full like piece dedicated to this in the resource, but more to come in the future. But just respecting spiritual and religious beliefs without leveraging, using these to leverage or exploit those pain points. And I think it kind of comes back to that last one, is just acknowledging that those things might be at play. And if you are, again, context specific, if you are working with a certain demographic, hey, we're exploring the Kabbalah. Hey, we're working with the Bible. Hey, we're working with the, the yoga mentality or whatever it might be. Working to understand these philosophies and how it can support our own self growth. Like, just be transparent about that, versus, again, like instilling fear or instilling lack from
Mhm.
that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, encouraging grounded and incremental changes.
Yeah.
There it is.
I just read that one.
Yeah, that one's like the other side of the coin of the radical life change that we were talking about. Marketing that promotes practical, step by step approaches to personal growth, business development, or healing, rather than advocating for extreme all or nothing changes. Phrases might look like, this program will help you build the foundation for sustainable change, rather than the path to freedom is escaping the 9 to 5, or 10 out of 10 recommend quitting your day job and moving across the country.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we can't talk about our own experiences, but being mindful of how we leverage our own stories and use those as our own qualifications, and how we might overgeneralize that, respecting that everybody's path is different, and respecting the how personalized and vulnerable these areas of self-development, growth, life journeys are, without um,
Yeah.
oversimplifying what that looks like, or telling somebody what it needs to look like, right? Like the
Right.
idea of, again, that self-appointed guru of like, I know what's best for you kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's very grounded to just sell your dream. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a grounded approach. Like, something grounded is like, I can teach you 5 steps to,
Mm,
like, learn more about your finances or something. And, like, then that can be applied to more people who are looking to learn about their finances, as opposed to, like, I live my dream life. Let me help you live your dream life. Like, because am living my dream life, I now have authority. Like, grounded approaches are ones that are like, you know what you're getting. It's rooted in earth and
Mhm.
like this reality. And it's like replicable. Is that the word? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to replicate like something grounded in reality as opposed to like a dream or all of this subjective stuff. You can't replicate that because it's so personal, but like everyone can learn how to budget,
Yeah.
like, or learn ways to, I don't know. I'm not a financial expert, so I can't even think of examples of how to like do what I would teach, but I know there's things that are more, like this thing you're offering, the red flags in marketing, like it's very
Mm.
specific and grounded, and you know what you're getting, and it's replicable. Like anyone can read this and take something
Yeah.
from it, regardless of what kind of business they're in or what they're doing or offering.
Yeah. Yeah. The practical approaches, the grounded approaches, um,
Hmm.
providing access to tangible tools, permanent products, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, incremental changes versus the drastic
Right.
jumping leap. Um, Other side of the coin of the over sexualization red flag is respectful and appropriate use of language around sexuality. I mean, we're all adults. It doesn't mean we don't have to talk about these things. It doesn't have to be approached in a taboo way. But the green flag of this side of over sexualization or just sexualization in marketing in general is that we would look to respect the complexity of sexuality and understand that hypersexualization can be harmful or triggering. And coaches with trauma informed approaches are going to be avoiding using sensational language to sell their programs. Um, they use respectful, nuanced language when discussing topics related to sexuality and recognizing that this is a sensitive area for many individuals. So it might look like marketing addressing topics that sound like, sexual healing or empowerment with sensitivity, avoiding hypersexualized or objectifying language that might look like phrases that, um, or marketing tactics that sound like this program will guide you into reconnecting with your body and personal power through these modalities rather than unlock the juicy codes to reclaiming your sensuality. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Again, a
Yeah.
lot of these things will probably, the red flags will leave you with more like questions than answers. So
Mm.
some ways to identify that is looking for language that treats sexuality as an integral part of personal growth and is approached with care and responsibility, avoiding marketing that feels exploitive or sensationalized, particularly when it comes to sex related topics or topics that aren't related at all, right? We talked about that. So being mindful of where those links are made and paying attention to messages that include compassionate language and are incorporating trigger warnings, and also disclaimers around one's scope or qualifications
Yeah.
when teaching these subjects.
Yeah. Really, it all, like, everything could just be boiled down to transparency. Like, if you're
Hmm.
being honest about what you're offering, the scope of your practice,
Yeah.
having a willingness to like refer people to people who might be more qualified than you to handle certain aspects. Like I held a feeling circle one time and we got into some really traumatic topics, and I was like, listen, like I do not have any training on this. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm not your teacher or your guru. Like I would highly recommend that if you're struggling with this, seek out a trauma informed therapist or
Yeah.
someone who's more knowledgeable in this. And if you need help doing that, I can help you research who might be doing that. But you know I'm not gonna pretend I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that's
So
so important. Yeah. And that's our last two red or green flags is
yeah.
transparency and program objectives, deliverables, and pricing. And then the second one being acknowledgement of scope and clear disclaimers. And I think we've touched on these
Hmm.
both equally as far as um, a lot of these can be boiled down to these two pieces, which is really true transparency.
Yeah.
So I don't even think we even need to dive into what that is. It's exactly what it sounds like, being very clear about the objectives, intentions of the program, being clear about what you get for what you're paying for, and not having mystery pricing of like, click this link and then schedule this call and then find out how much it is. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just putting everything out on the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we had a great conversation, and I think, piecing it all together, when you listen to it all, you get a clear picture of like what feels good and what feels just a little bit off, and I think just tuning into your own body and noticing, like, when I think about signing up for this offering, am I feeling like anxious and rushed, like I have to do it right now? Or do I feel calm and called to this? Like, how does it feel? And that's going to look different for everyone. And
Yeah,
again, we could do a whole thing on human design. Some people know immediately, some people need time. And I think just, respecting the process and knowing, like, it's okay. Not everyone has to be your teacher. And it's okay if an offering isn't for you.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
oh, thanks, Shannon. This was a long one. I didn't know it was going to be this long, but I feel like we spent a lot of time going into the details and really just hitting it, you know, hitting it as thoroughly as we could. And obviously, we didn't touch on every single scenario or possibility and
Right.
any of that. But I'll put in the notes Shannon's like contact information and where you can find her on Instagram and her website and all of that, because she'll be sharing a free resource that everyone can download that has all of this like written out really clearly, all of the red flags and discernment and stuff like that. So that's an awesome resource that she's offering for free, which I would say is another green flag, having free resources available to the community. And then I know you're going to be doing some more, like, I think you were saying like a webinar or course or.
Yeah, definitely looking to create space for an interactive workshop so that we can open up the dialogue for these shares, so that we can dive into some of the more nitty gritty and the nuances of each of these red flags, and then create
Mhm.
the opportunity to go through the green flags in a way that is more individualized to those who show up in that container. And
Yeah.
from that, I'll kind of lean into the logistics and technicalities of sharing recordings and webinars, as that's kind of not quite my wheelhouse, but an area that I desire to stretch into, to just be another doorway of accessibility as far as people who can't make it to the live ones. But yeah, the next thing that I really am breathing life into, that is pretty much all ready to go, is an active interactive container, where we're going to go over the red flags in depth in a more open dialogue sense, and then also move into the green flags and talk a little bit more about some trauma informed integrations. And then that'll have a nice big packet takeaway with all the red flags, green flags, and some notes on trauma informed care. And then we'll see what continues to evolve from there. I think I'm always interested in seeing everybody's responses and what people want to see more of, and in what modalities, just so I can reach the most people. But it's definitely something that has been a fire stoked for a long time, moving up from the belly into the throat and bringing into, practical movement. And I'm just, yeah, super grateful for the space and the time. Although, um, yeah, a bit longer than we anticipated. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening to us. Thanks for engaging in such thoughtful and important conversation with me, Kel. I appreciate you and honor and respect you and look up to you in so many ways. So I appreciate it. And um, yeah, love the fire that we're tending to here, and continue to, yeah, just appreciate the way that you show up in the space that you create for others too. So thanks again for the
Oh.
invitation, and thanks for everyone for listening and tuning in to such an important topic.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm really, like I said, I'm just honored to have you, and it's been really cool to witness the way, I, as my manifestor self, like was like, "Hey, let's do this," and you were like, "Okay," and just
Invitation?
like blasted off. Yeah, you're like, "An invitation, here we go," and you
Yeah.
just really took it to the next level, and it's just been awesome to watch. And I'll definitely be sharing your resources. I think they're awesome and really beneficial for people. So Thanks for putting that all together.
Yeah, of
And
course.
thanks for
Appreciate you.
coming.
Yeah.
I would be honored if before we closed out this session, if you would do me the honor of pulling a card
Yeah.
just to kind of wrap up the podcast, see what card comes through for us, for the people listening.
Yeah. Let's move this
For
flame away. So this is a oracle deck from Alana Fairchild, and we're doing the Earth Warriors Oracle. And this one is a really in-depth, it offers really in-depth reading. So if you're not familiar, highly recommend looking into it. There's not only the typical kind of deciphering of the message, but then there's a spiritual guidance section, and then there's also like a healing process, which is more of a ritual approach if you choose. So we'll see what we get for today. I had one jump out earlier too when we started, so we'll see.
If it's the same one, I love when that happens.
I know, I'm like, let's go.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, it's two. So we've
All
got,
right.
and the artwork is incredible. So I'll show it here. I know not everyone will be able to see it.
Oh yeah.
We've got this like fierce lion vibe, number 22, Inganyama, and I could be saying that wrong. But honor of the ancient king. Some masculine archetype energy. And then the second one that jumped right with that, Luca Vihini. And this one is super beautiful with another animal being. It's got an owl on there with a woman, and it says, "She who rides the owl brings justice." Ooh. So both these super fiery and very applicable in many ways before we even look at the deciphered message, which is super cool. And that one's number 8, so we'll start with that one first. I'm just going to read the brief description of it. There's like a little mantra quote with it. And then I don't know if we can like link or take a picture and share the rest of it, just for the sake of how in depth it goes. But yeah, so she who rides the owl brings justice. It says, I am the goddess of karma, wealth, and balance. I come to correct a dharma, that which is dark, unnatural, and against nature, life, love, and goodness. I mean, just chills.
Dude. I have goosebumps all over my whole body.
I redress the misuse of wealth and power. This is gonna like inspire a whole thing now. This might just have to be, yeah, wow. Alana, she's just powerhouse in herself. I enact divine justice and restore divine order. Trust in the innocence of your own soul and fear not, for I am ever watchful and my power brings truth. Divine justice is always brought to a bear. Damn.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's powerful. I love this. This is why you gotta pull a card, dude. It's just always so on point. I'm like, this gives me life.
Whoa, that's good. And it says, just because it's short, I'll read in a reading the deciphered message here. Don't waste your valuable time and energy worrying about people getting away with things. It's not possible. Everything is balanced out by karma in the long run. If you feel down or depressed, take action immediately to reconnect to joy, healing energy, and vitality of spirit. All things are measured and metered by clear divine vision, and your job is to put faith in the work of the divine while you tend to your own journey with trust and commitment.
Dude.
So don't worry too much about it, because it's all going to level out.
I'm like, we ain't even gotta worry.
Oh, damn, that's good. And then we've got Honor of the Ancient King, which as a Leo, I love this card because it's just so fierce. The Ancient King of the Zula brings you an empowering message. You are destined to know and experience what it is to be truly empowered. Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. Your voice, your courage, your wisdom, and your dignity can create
considerable spiritual light, uplifting and inspiring others, guiding them from a place of spiritual truth towards the fulfillment of their own divine potential. If you have been doubting yourself or feeling unworthy of your boldness, of your visions, you must allow your spirit to roar, for you shall conquer all obstacles and succeed in your heart's desires. I like that.
Dude.
That tone of empowerment. That tone of empowerment is definitely a green flag, folks.
Dude, straight up. Those were great. They like perfectly, they align, you know, they mirrored each other in a way.
Yeah.
You know, justice and empowerment. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. Ooh, that was beautiful.
Dude. Thank you,
that.
Shannon. I really appreciate this. I'm so excited to see the things that unfold, and just really appreciate you taking the time to, you know, talk this truth with me. So
yeah,
I love you.
Love you too, dude. Appreciate you. This was great.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
Still hazy, funk past J's, a face of blunt ashtrays and skate with punk kids. I still chase the sun bad days, I'm lacing up half cabs and shake John spliffs. Whatever happened to rap, it should rest in peace to Mac, and I'm here to raise it from the dead. Cause drugs ain't cool, kid, plug you with that new shit, turn water to wine and break bread. And if I said this all the future, would you trust I told the truth, or would you run away and tell my whole fan base? Cause sooner or later, kid, they'll take your human nature and they'll burn you at the stakes while the band plays. So, in the last words, better speak up now. I said, why do birds sing? What's a king without a crown? They all stood in silence while they listened to the sound of a madman reason with the demons he found. You can't lock up ideas, we don't even exist. I just live through the speakers and the beats that we kick. Is this forbidden fruit from the Garden of Eden? Is it freedom of speech, or am I speaking for freedom?